Hey guys, let's talk constitutional rights and scumbags because even scumbags have rights. First, the disgusting scumbag, Chad Doerman. He executed three terrified children, his own children, and injured his terrified wife, and then surrendered when the police showed up, unfortunately. Now, let's get to the rights. What are we going to talk about? Miranda rights. Miranda rights kick in when police want to engage in custodial interrogation. If they don't observe Miranda rights correctly, information gleaned from questions made during custodial interrogation might be excluded at trial. Now, of course, I keep saying custodial interrogation. So understand they don't have to read you your rights before they arrest you, as some idiots on body-worn camera on YouTube seem to think. They also don't have to do that if the questions are made while you're not in custody. And if they do it, it just means the evidence maybe can't be used. So that's what we're going to get into here. So we'll talk about Doerman's interrogation while in custody. He was fully under arrest in a law enforcement facility, and that's the traditional Miranda situation, being questioned by a detective while he's under arrest. He was even handcuffed. And we're only going to talk about the detective's interrogation, not other things, other statements he made to other people. But this is the one that this video is about. So his defense attorneys put 5 grounds up to suppress the June 15, 2023 interrogation by the detective. Failure to properly advise the scumbag of pre-custodial interrogation rights was ground 1. Valid waiver not obtained because it wasn't in writing. Valid waiver not obtained because the scumbag wasn't asked to sign a waiver. Scumbag invoked the right to counsel, but the interrogation continued, and outrageous police conduct. Now, of course, these rights are important for everybody, not just scumbags, but that's who we're dealing with here. Now, on 2 and 3, that the waiver has to be in writing and you have to get them to sign it. The judge said, no, that's not the law. So those are out. We just toss that out. Let's go to 5, outrageous police conduct, because that's always cool, right? They hit him with a pipe, a hose, something like that, a light bulb in his eyes, keep him, sleep deprive him, starve him, turn the AC down, all those things, good cop, bad cop. Well, the first horror was that he was in the interrogation room for 3 hours and 11 minutes. He was alone for an hour of that. So he was interrogated for 2 hours. This only involves the murder of 3 children. I mean, what are we doing here? You're inconveniencing this guy for a length of time approaching that of watching The English Patient. Is that unconstitutional? I can see the argument there, but they didn't make him watch a movie like that. So no, that's not. The court said that's not an excessive amount of time to have this guy interrogated. They also used the word monster during the interrogation, although they weren't yelling at him or standing over him or anything like that. Monster. All we're talking about here, again, is chasing down and murdering in cold blood 3 young children, his own children, in front of his wife, and injuring her in the process, I think, with a bullet. To use an excessive word like monster, how horrifying. Surely when they drafted the Constitution, they wanted to make sure that didn't happen. Yeah, I don't think so either. He didn't know they were recording. It doesn't matter. He was scared because he was in custody. Okay. Also, during this interrogation, he had a bottle of water, a Coke, dipping tobacco. He was offered food, asked if he wanted any medicine. He took his hands out from behind his back, put it in the front so that he could drink and, whatever with the tobacco and stuff like that. So the court said no outrageous police conduct here. Now, of course, there has been outrageous police conduct in the past, and it could have happened. And they also brought up things like a detective saying something bad about him while they were out at the police cars. But the judge wisely said, look, none of that amounts to anything here. So that leaves us with Miranda and the 2 questions that were brought up. And one is, was he appropriately advised of his Miranda rights? And the second, did he ask for a lawyer? And they kept on questioning him anyway, which you're not supposed to do. Well, I mean, you can keep asking questions, but you're not going to be able to use the evidence in court, right? So you don't have to follow a particular script for Miranda. You don't the exact wording in the case law, but if you don't, you have to give the equivalent. And if you mess that up, then you could have an issue like we have here where a confession could be thrown out. So let's take a look at it. So the court says, I'll put it on the screen here, that these are the oral warnings that this police department, sheriff's department, or whatever it was, says has to be given to a subject prior to interrogation. And you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you questions, and to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning. If you wish, do you understand it? Do you want to answer questions? And that's what they're supposed to say. So they said, you have the right to remain silent. Check. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Check. You have the right to talk to a lawyer before we ask you any questions. Check. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. Check. But the unchecked part is, let's go back, let's rewind it. You have a right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. And they didn't say that to Doerman. That's the part they left out. And that cost them at least part of this interrogation, because he also asked for a lawyer later. That's an independent ground to throw this out if you don't respect that. But right off the get-go, they didn't mention this part of the Miranda rights. And the judge says, listen, that's a critical aspect of Miranda rights. You can't just skip part of it. You didn't tell him about it. So effectively, you didn't get past the Miranda screening. So you're not going to be able to use this interrogation. Wow. Okay. Because he did make inculpatory statements during this. Now, there's a lot of evidence against this guy. He's obviously guilty. But about 5 minutes into the interrogation, he tells the police, listen, I'll wait for a lawyer, and then I can come up with some good answers for you then, but I'll wait for a lawyer. And the detective says, I understand. The judge said, look, this declaration about wanting a lawyer was not ambiguous. He wasn't saying, well, maybe I should talk to a lawyer or something like that. He said, I'll wait for a lawyer. So that would mean nothing past that point could be used anyway, because they didn't wait for a lawyer. They just kept asking questions. And I think that was only a few minutes into the interrogation. So that's it. A disgusting scumbag who's obviously guilty gets the benefit of the law. And that's the right answer. Rights aren't just there for when the government thinks you deserve them. Unfortunately, though, of course, here the case evidence is overwhelming. And this guy's going to be convicted, that's for sure. I mean, anything can happen. A meteorite could hit the courthouse during the trial, but basically speaking, that's a shoo-in. So throwing out the confessions now, if that's what the law requires, is far better than not doing it. And then after conviction, he would have a ground for appeal, basis for a new trial. So while it is distasteful at this point, it's the right answer. And it also means there's a higher chance that an appellate court looking at the trial as it moves along would not find reversible error. Now, on a final note, the defense made various arguments about Doerman's mental state during the interrogation, as if he were simply overwhelmed by the whole process. He couldn't even. And so like a lamb, he confessed to these hungry wolves. The judge didn't buy it, and he shouldn't have. But what Doerman deserved was some help, all right. In my opinion, a prescription of 20 cc's of copper-jacketed lead delivered at about 3,000 feet per second into a vital organ until he doesn't need help ever again that's the right therapy for this guy. But what he got was decent treatment and all of his rights, because that's how the system is supposed to work. Punishment after conviction and due process rights along the way. So while Doerman is about as much of a worthless, low-life garbage bag of a human as someone can be, the judge did the right thing at the right time. And well, that's it. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.